Guys, welcome back. If you're new to my channel or just simply not yet subscribed, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button real quick. And this goes for any creator that you want to support, just simply by subscribing, liking our channels, commenting, and sharing our videos. It tremendously helps us. So if you guys could do one or all of those things, it would mean so much to me, and thank you. We finally hit 2,000 subscribers, and I'm so happy and blessed and grateful for every single one of you. So just thank you for that. Here's to on the road to 5,000. So anyways, today we're going to be talking about doppelgangers. Now, I remember reading a book called, it was a short story that was in the series The Midnight Library. I used to love those books. But it had to do with doppelgangers and an evil twin from a different universe. I also remember the Bratz kids, they did something with a doppelganger too. I was a huge Bratz fan. We're going to be diving into what a doppelganger is and real life experiences where people actually encountered their doppelgangers. Word doppelganger actually originated in Germany, and it means double walker or a ghostly double of a living person. They can manifest in a number of different ways. You can see them standing behind you while you look in the mirror. You can see them out of the corner of your eye, or you can even see them directly in front of you while you're out shopping or just going for a walk. Now, sometimes the doppelganger isn't actually seen by the person whose double it is. Instead, it's seen by their family or friends, and they're in an entirely different place than the actual person is. Now, occasionally, the doppelganger may actually cooperate with its double and help them with different tasks, or even kind of serve as a surrogate body where you're able to travel into another dimension or another location using that doppelganger. But 9 times out of 10, seeing a doppelganger is considered to be a dark omen. They're considered to be an evil twin or a harbinger of misfortune or even death. Legend has it that if you come face to face with your double, that it's a warning of death for the both of you. So not something you want to encounter. But one theory is that everybody has a body double. One is good and the other is evil. So if you are generally good, then the other one is probably generally evil. And that it's just in a different dimension or on a different timeline than you. In folklore, it actually says that a doppelganger has no shadow or reflection. So that makes it a little bit easier to tell which one is the real one for this world. And in some cases, a person will actually come into contact with their doppelganger because the doppelganger comes from the future, and therefore they're traveling to their past, which is your present. Scientists at a hospital in Geneva, Switzerland, discovered that electrical stimulation to the brain used to treat epilepsy can actually produce the sensation of doppelgangers in the patient. So now we're going to dive into real cases where people encounter their doppelgangers. American writer, let me see Castiel. I'll move over so you can be in the video. American writer Robert Dale Owen recounted the tale of a 32-year-old French woman by the name of Emily Sage. Now, she was a teacher at Pensionnat Con-Neuvillec, which was an exclusive girls' school near Wolmer, which is now Latvia. One day in 1815, while Sage was writing on the blackboard, her exact double appeared beside her. Now, the doppelganger precisely copied every one of her movements, except for the fact that it wasn't holding any chalk. 13 students in this classroom witnessed this. During the next year, Sage's doppelganger was seen several times. However, the most astonishing instance took place in full view of the entire student body of 42 students. So there was a decent amount of witnesses. This happened on a summer day in 1846. As they sat at long tables working, they could see Sage in the school's garden gathering flowers. When the teacher left the room to talk to the headmistress, Sage's doppelganger appeared in the chair, while the real Sage could still be seen in the garden. Two girls actually decided to approach the doppelganger that was in the chair and tried to touch it, but as they went to do so, they felt this strange air of resistance. And before they could physically touch the doppelganger, it vanished. The next encounter happened to the French novelist Guy de Maupassant. I'm probably butchering that. He was inspired to write his short story, Lou, which meant he with a question mark, after he had his own disturbing doppelganger experience in 1889. While writing, de Maupassant claims that his body double entered his study and sat right beside him and began dictating the story that he was in the process of writing. Lou, the narrative is told by a young man who is convinced that he is going crazy after having glimpsed what appeared to be his body double. For de Maupassant, who claimed to have numerous encounters with his double, the story was almost prophetic. At the end of his life, de Maupassant was committed to a mental institution following a suicide attempt in 1892. The following year, he died. So, in a way, he almost wrote a story about himself. The next one we have is about a 16th century poet named John Donne. Now, his work often touched on the metaphysical, but he claimed to have been visited by his wife's doppelganger while he was in Paris. She appeared to him holding a newborn baby. John's wife was pregnant at the time, but the apparition was really sad. And at the same moment as the doppelganger appeared to him, his wife had given birth to a stillborn, which I can't imagine. The next one I have for you guys has to do with Johann Wolfgang von Goeth. Now, he was an 18th century German poet. He wrote of confronting his doppelganger in his autobiography, Dichtung und Wahrheit, which meant poetry and truth. In this account, Goeth describes traveling to the city of Drusenheim to visit Frederick Briere, a young woman with whom he was having an affair. He was emotional and lost in thought. Goeth looked up to see a man dressed in a gray suit that was trimmed in gold, who appeared briefly and then vanished. 8 years later, Goeth was traveling again on the same road, again to visit Frederick. He then realized that he was wearing the very gray suit trimmed with gold that he had seen on his double 8 years earlier. And at the end of his visit with Frederick, he broke off the affair. Now, this one is especially crazy. So this has to do with Sister Mary of Jesus. Now, this took place in 1622 at the Isolita Mission, in which is now New Mexico. Father Alonso de Benavides reported encountering Germano Indians who, though they had never met Spaniards, carried crosses, observed Roman Catholic rituals, and knew Catholic language in their native tongue. The Indians told them that they had been instructed in Christianity by a lady in blue who came among them for many years and taught them this new religion in their language. When he returned to Spain, Father Benavides, his investigation led him to Sister Mary of Jesus in Agreda, Spain, who claimed to have converted North American Indians, not in body, but in spirit. Sister Mary said that she regularly would fall into the cataleptic trance after which she recalled dreams in which she was carried to a strange and wild land where she taught the gospel. As proof of her claim, she was able to provide detailed descriptions of the Jamano Indians, including their appearance, their clothing, and their customs, none of which she could have learned through research, since this tribe was fairly recently discovered by the Europeans. So how did she know the language? When she was confronted with this question, she said that she didn't. She said that she simply spoke to them and God let us understand each other. Next, we have Catherine the Great. Now, Catherine the Great was a powerful empress of Russia in the 18th century. It said that one night, Catherine was lying in her bed when worried servants told her that they had just seen her enter the throne room. When Catherine set out to investigate, she found her doppelganger just calmly sitting on the throne. Catherine immediately ordered her servants to shoot at her ghostly counterpart. Now, the story doesn't say whether, what happened, if actually shooting at the doppelganger worked, but the eerie thing is that, minus, the part of seeing someone who looks exactly like you, is that Catherine died shortly after this encounter. Next, we have Percy Bysshe Shelley. He was a poet, and he's mainly remembered as being the husband of Mary Shelley, who was the author of Frankenstein. If you've never read Frankenstein, highly recommend it. It's a great novel. So shortly before Percy drowned in a sailing accident in 1812, he confessed to Mary that he had met his doppelganger numerous times. These confrontations included one particularly haunting experience where he walked onto a terrace only to be greeted by his doppelganger, who asked him, "How long do you mean to be content?" Imagine seeing somebody that is completely your double, and they're asking you, "How long do you expect to be happy?" It's how do you respond to that? Percy's doppelganger was also witnessed by Mary's close friend, Jane Williams, who saw it passing by her window on a route that was frequently walked by the real Percy, but to a dead end, and never returned. And the real Percy was nowhere near that area at the time. Next, we have Sir Frederick Carn Roche. In 1906, British Parliament member Sir Gilbert Parker was attending a debate when he spotted Sir Frederick Carn Roche, who was another Parliament member sitting nearby. This really surprised Sir Gilbert because Sir Frederick was supposed to be severely ill with influenza. But because he saw him, he still greeted him and was like, "I hope you're feeling better." But the being didn't react in any type of way. He just sat there with a stony, grim expression on his face. When Sir Gilbert soon glanced at his friend again, the seat was completely empty. So he searched the lobby, only to find that no one had seen him pass by. When he discussed the event with other Parliament members, it turned out that other people had actually seen him as well. And when the real Carn Roche, who had actually been in bed sick all along, it was never there, found out about this incident, he wasn't surprised. He had really wanted to take part in the debate before he had gotten sick. So to him, he said that it made sense that his double wanted to take a sneak peek of what was going on. His family, however, was horrified and feared that the doppelganger was a bad omen. In a small way, they were right, more because it was kind of annoying. For a while, Carn Roche was annoyed by fellow Parliament members who kept poking them with their fingers to make sure he was real. And in the end, he wrote a massively sarcastic letter to a local newspaper, apologizing that he didn't have the good sense to die at the time of the doppelganger sighting, and promising to behave better next time. So the guy definitely had a sense of humor. It's quite a way to go out. Next, we have one that most, if not all of you, should know, Queen Elizabeth I. She reigned from 1558 to 1603, and she was the last tutor to rule the country. She was widely recognized as being charismatic, level-headed, and a savvy monarch. She wasn't somebody that you would expect to dabble in the paranormal. She claimed that she had witnessed her doppelganger. According to the queen, the double of her was lying motionless on her bed, almost like a corpse laid out for presentation. The experience was extremely haunting because these sightings are supposed to mean death. Still, it would be, wouldn't be crazy to jump to she was just stressed, right? Because she's a ruler, has a lot on her plate. But she died soon after the sighting. So, doesn't really seem like a coincidence there. Next, we have Abraham Lincoln. Now, he did have an interest in the paranormal, but he kept it more private. He wasn't super open about it. On the night of his first election, he took a moment to rest on the couch. And while he was lying there, he happened to glance in a mirror. And he saw himself, except there was two of him. There was a second Lincoln. He was pale and ghostly. He was looking at him from inside the mirror, right next to his own face. So Lincoln was pretty startled and he got off the couch because wouldn't you be? And when he got up, the doppelganger disappeared. Got back down and he saw it again. He was startled, but his wife, Mary, was terrified. She was convinced that the doppelganger was just straight up bad news, and that it was a sign that Lincoln would be reelected for a second term, but that he wouldn't survive it. Lincoln went to the couch to repeat the experiment every once in a while, and he did manage to catch a glimpse of his doppelganger a few times, but it ended up stopping appearing. Maybe because it had delivered its message, because Lincoln didn't end up finishing his second term. The last one I have for you guys happened in June 22nd, 1893. And it has to do with Vice Admiral George Tyron. Now, he was commanding 2 columns of ships off the coast of Syria when he gave the command for the columns to turn towards each other. Now, this attempt at a majestic naval drill was what was considered an amateur mistake because the ships rammed into each other, and the one that Tyron happened to be in just sank. Tyron died knowing that he had doomed 357 men to drown. His last words were actually, "It is entirely my fault." That's quite a weight. At the exact same time as this was happening, Tyron's wife was holding this lavish party for their friends in her London home, or in their London home. Suddenly, Tyron appeared. So the guests were kind of like confused, surprised. Silently, he walked down a staircase and proceeded through the drawing room and opened the door as if to leave before he suddenly just disappeared. He was dressed in full uniform, as if he was commanding a drill. Lady Tyron said that she never actually saw her husband with the guests. However, some guests say that she was one of the onlookers. But I'm curious if this almost isn't the same, like, this isn't necessarily a doppelganger, but this is him, like, Tyron himself after dying. Like, because if it's within that moment, he could have went back. So I'm not as sure if that one's a doppelganger or not. But crazy, right? Like, that these things are actually seen. I mean, there are different dimensions out there, so it would make sense that everybody has a double, right? And it would make sense if they're not entirely like you and that they're opposite. I mean, they're on a different plane. But do you guys think that seeing a doppelganger is a bad omen? Do you think that they, these are just mere coincidences? I mean, I know I've gotten before, like, asking if I'm somebody else because I look like somebody. But I don't know, you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button. And until next time, have a nice, bye.